Have you ever sat in your living room, coffee in hand, sunlight pouring through the window, and suddenly realized how quiet everything is? Not peaceful quiet, but the kind that lingers in the walls. The kind that makes you miss the sound of footsteps down the hall or someone asking, "What's for dinner?" If you have, you're not alone. Life changes as we age. The kids grow up, move across the country, start families of their own. And while we're proud of them, we really are, there are days when we wish we could hear their voices without needing to check the time zone first. It's not that we want to interrupt their lives. We just want to feel connected, still needed, still seen. But here's something I want to say to you, from one soul to another. Just because life has gotten quieter doesn't mean it has to feel empty. And just because you're physically alone doesn't mean you're emotionally abandoned. In fact, this season of life, this space between what was and what's next, might be the most powerful time you've ever had. Because this is where something beautiful begins. And that's what I want to share with you today. Let's talk about how to find peace and happiness, even when the house is silent, the phone is still, and your heart is missing those you love. Let's talk about what timeless wisdom can teach us, not in a scholarly way, but in a real practical way, about how to live well, right here and now. This way of thinking isn't about being cold or emotionless. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about learning what you can control and what you can let go. It's about building a strong, steady heart that can weather the seasons. Yes, even this one. So let me ask you this. What if this quiet wasn't your ending? What if it's your beginning? Let's start with something simple, but often overlooked. Your thoughts. You see, we spend so much time looking out the window, waiting for a phone call, checking the mail, hoping for a visit. But rarely do we stop to look inward and ask, what am I telling myself all day long? Because that voice inside, your inner narrator, can either be your biggest critic or your greatest ally. It's often said that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And isn't that true? How many times have you thought, they don't care anymore, just because your kids missed a call? Or, I'm no longer needed, just because no one asked for your advice that week? But here's the truth. Your value isn't tied to how many messages you get or how often someone knocks on your door. Your worth lives in who you are, not in how many people depend on you. When you catch yourself spiraling into loneliness, pause, take a breath, and remind yourself, this moment is mine. I can choose how I think about it. You're not being left behind. You're being given space to rediscover yourself. Now, this doesn't mean the ache disappears. Missing your family is real, and it's okay to feel it. But instead of letting it swallow your day, let it pass through like a wave. Sit with it, acknowledge it, and then gently shift your focus. What's something you can enjoy today, just for yourself? A walk? A favorite recipe? A book you haven't opened in years? What can you give yourself without waiting for someone else to bring it to your doorstep? That brings me to something else worth living by: being present. Now, we hear that phrase a lot. Be in the moment. But what does that really mean when you're sitting alone with your thoughts? It means noticing the sunlight warming your hands. It means sipping your tea slowly, like it's the most luxurious thing in the world. It means planting herbs on your windowsill just because it makes you smile when they bloom. You don't have to be surrounded by people to feel alive. You just need to be aware of your life as it's happening. Every moment is a chance to practice gratitude. And not the kind that's forced, where you make a list to feel better. No, the quiet kind. The kind where you breathe in and think, this is enough. And that leads us into something else I hope you carry with you today: the power of routine. You see, when the house is full and the calendar is busy, routines create order. But when things slow down, routines can feel pointless. The days blur. The mornings don't feel different from the evenings. But this is exactly when a gentle rhythm can become your anchor. You don't need a packed schedule. You just need a few simple rituals that remind you, I matter. My day has shape. My life still has structure and meaning. Maybe you start your morning by opening the blinds and lighting a candle. Or you make a pot of tea, the kind you really love, and sit by the window with your thoughts. Maybe you write one thing you noticed today, one thing you're proud of, one thing you're curious about. You're not doing these things to impress anyone. You're doing them to remind yourself that you are still here and that your presence is enough. As you begin to build this inner strength, something shifts. You stop waiting for happiness to knock. You begin creating it quietly in the corners of your day. And when your children do call, when someone does come by, it no longer feels like your only bright moment. It just becomes a lovely part of a life already full. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds good, but I'm not there yet. And that's okay. This isn't about perfection. It's about taking one step, then another. About noticing the world not through what's missing, but through what remains. A hot meal. A favorite song. The way the light dances on your kitchen counter. These things are not small. They are sacred. And when you begin to see them that way, everything starts to feel different. So today, try this. The next time the silence creeps in and your chest tightens with that old feeling of being left behind, pause. Breathe. Remind yourself, I am still here. I am still me. I am enough. And now that you've begun to think about your thoughts, your presence, and your rhythms, let's keep going. You see, something beautiful begins to happen when you stop waiting for someone else to make your life feel full. Your days start to feel like they belong to you again. You begin to notice that your peace doesn't come from noise or company, it comes from intention, from the way you choose to move through each day. There's a simple but powerful idea. Live according to nature. And for you and me, that might mean something very grounded, very human. It means living in step with your truth, your season of life, and the quiet wisdom that comes with it. You don't have to chase the world. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. And you don't have to keep up with a version of success that doesn't match your soul. You can, instead, slow down. Let the world come to you. And in that slowness, you can begin to reconnect with nature, with beauty, and most importantly, with yourself. One of the most powerful ways to do this is to rediscover your space. Yes, the space around you, your home. Because when the nest empties, it's easy to feel like you're just rattling around in the leftover pieces of a life that used to be full. But what if your home didn't have to be a museum to the past? What if it could become a sanctuary for the person you are now? Maybe there's a chair that no one ever sits in. Move it to the window and claim it as your morning spot. Maybe there's a wall that hasn't changed in 20 years. Hang something new, something that reflects who you are today. Your home isn't meant to stay frozen in time. It should grow with you, breathe with you. You don't need to redecorate with expensive things. You just need to make the space feel alive again, with your energy, your preferences, your spirit. Even something as simple as putting a plant by the sink or rearranging your bookshelf so your favorites are easier to reach can be a small act of joy. There's wisdom in shaping the environment around you with care because the external often reflects the internal. A tidy corner, a meaningful photo, a fresh candle. These are not just decorations. They are affirmations. They say, I am here. I still matter. And that brings us to something else, creativity. When was the last time you made something just for the sake of making it? Not for anyone else, not for a grand goal, but just because it made you feel alive? Maybe it's painting, or writing a letter by hand, or cooking something new just for you. There's something incredibly healing about using your hands and heart to create something that didn't exist before. You don't have to be good at it. That's not the point. The point is to connect with that quiet part of yourself that still wants to play, explore, express. Even something like humming to yourself while folding laundry or dancing in the kitchen while the pasta boils, those are moments of lightness, of life, and they're yours to claim. It's been said that we are not disturbed by things, but by the judgments we make about them. So if you believe your quiet life is boring, then that's how it will feel. But if you begin to see it as sacred, as a peaceful open canvas, you might start to fall in love with it. You might begin to cherish the simplicity. Now let's talk about solitude. Because let's be honest, this is the one that gets a lot of us. The silence, the stillness, the empty chair at the dinner table. It's easy to confuse solitude with loneliness, but they are not the same. Loneliness is the ache for connection. Solitude is the space to reconnect with yourself, with your values, with your center. There's a quiet dignity in being able to sit with yourself without needing distraction. It's not easy at first, but slowly it becomes a kind of strength. Spending time alone isn't about rejecting others. It's about understanding that self-sufficiency leads to inner freedom. When you learn to enjoy your own company, the world opens up in a different way. You stop fearing silence. You begin listening to it. And you start hearing the things that really matter. That's when you realize your solitude isn't punishment. It's opportunity. Time to reflect. Time to rest. Time to ask yourself without rushing, what do I want today? And that question is a gift. You might not have had the space to ask it when you were raising kids or juggling responsibilities, but you have it now. And speaking of questions, here's another one. When was the last time you reached out? Not out of need, but out of fullness? Because here's the beauty of practicing peace and purpose from within. You begin to give from abundance, not emptiness. Maybe it's a phone call to a friend, not because you're lonely, but because you want to share something beautiful from your day. Maybe it's writing a card to your grandchild, not because you miss them, but because you have a story to tell. That kind of connection is different. It's rooted in strength, not longing. Wise thinkers throughout history didn't isolate themselves from life. They engaged with it wisely. They understood that true connection begins with inner stillness. And from that stillness, you can show up for others in a calm, grounded, loving way. This is how peace begins to take root. Not through grand events, not through constant communication, but through the steady rhythm of your own heartbeat, the warmth of a cup of tea, the joy of noticing the way the light hits your kitchen counter at 4 p.m. It's all there, waiting for you to see it. Not as a filler, not as a consolation, but as a life. A rich, meaningful, beautiful life. Let yourself arrive in it fully. Because the days are not lesser now. They are different, yes, but not lesser. In some ways, they are more honest, more yours. So if your phone is quiet today and the house is still, know this. That doesn't mean you're forgotten. It means you've been given the space to come home to yourself. And what a precious home that is. As you settle into that space, where the noise has softened and the demands have lessened, something gentle begins to grow. You start to notice the difference between doing things because you have to and doing them because you want to. It's a quiet but powerful shift. Maybe it happens when you choose to cook something nice for dinner, even though no one else is coming. Or when you light a candle at the table, not for show, but as a small act of care for yourself. These little choices matter more than we think, because they tell your soul, I see you. You are still worthy of beauty, of ritual, of joy. Real happiness isn't found in what we collect or achieve. It's found in how we respond to life. We always have a choice, not over what happens to us, but over how we meet it. So when your kids don't call for a few days, when the holidays come and go without a full house, you still have that choice. To suffer in the silence, or to shift how you see it. To see the open hours as loneliness or as freedom. It might sound simple, but in practice, this shift is life-changing. It moves you from feeling forgotten to feeling full, from waiting for someone to make your life interesting, to creating interest from the world around you. And once that shift happens, it opens up something else: energy. The kind of energy that comes not from being busy, but from being present. You might feel a little more curious than you used to, a little more open to things. Maybe a neighbor invites you to a garden group, or the local library hosts a workshop. At first it might feel like too much. You might wonder, do I belong there? But what if you do? Because here's the truth. You're not done growing. You're not finished making memories. Your heart still has room. Your days still have color. You're allowed to show up, to meet new people, to try new things, even to stumble and laugh at yourself. That's what being alive really is. Not getting everything right, not staying comfortable, but being willing to keep showing up with softness, with honesty, with a little spark of courage. Maybe you join a book club. The first meeting feels awkward. You don't know if you have anything important to say. But then someone turns to you and asks, "What did you think?" And just like that, your voice returns. It doesn't have to be profound. It just has to be yours. And with each word, each smile, each tiny connection, you remember something vital. I still have something to offer. And the more you give from that place, not out of emptiness, but out of joy, the more your life fills with warmth. You start seeing familiar faces. You walk to the corner market and someone waves. You chat with a young cashier, and it makes you smile the rest of the day. These aren't grand moments, but they're real. They're yours. And they matter. You might even begin to share in new ways. Maybe you volunteer. Maybe you help someone carry their groceries up the stairs. Maybe you leave a kind note for the mail carrier. Not because anyone's watching, but because you've learned to live with your heart facing outward. And here's where timeless wisdom circles back again. Because once you stop chasing happiness and start living with purpose, everything changes. You no longer depend on others to validate your worth. You don't need every seat at the table to be filled in order to enjoy your meal. You don't need applause to feel proud of your day. You just need to be true. To yourself, to your values, to what really brings you peace. Some days that might look like an afternoon nap with your favorite blanket and a good book. Other days it might mean pulling out the watercolors you haven't touched in years. You begin to let yourself take up space again, not as someone who used to be needed, but as someone who is still becoming. You see, peace doesn't always come with silence, and happiness doesn't always come from laughter. Sometimes they arrive together in a small, still moment, a deep breath, a smile to yourself, a feeling in your chest that says, "This is enough." And yes, the ache may still visit you now and then. A memory might catch you off guard. A quiet night might bring back the longing for someone's voice. But now you know what to do with that ache. You don't fight it. You don't feed it. You just let it pass through, like a cloud moving across the sky. And you remember, love doesn't vanish when people are far. It stretches. It shifts. It settles into the spaces between phone calls, between visits, between holidays. And in those spaces, you can breathe. You can build. You can live. Because this isn't the chapter where you fade. This is the chapter where you rise. Quieter, yes, but more grounded. More clear. More you. The world may have once measured your worth by how busy you were, but not anymore. You've earned your stillness. You've earned your peace. You've earned the right to wake up and decide, today I choose joy. Not loud, not flashy, just mine. As the days move forward, something in you settles, not as resignation, but as calm. You no longer reach for what's gone. You no longer measure your life by what others see. You begin to live on your own terms, slowly, gently, and without apology. You realize you don't need to earn your place in this world. You already have it. Simply because you exist, because you breathe, because you are awake to your own life. There's such freedom in letting go of the old expectations. The ones that told you to always be busy, always be giving, always be strong for everyone else. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that to rest was lazy, that to enjoy quiet was lonely, that to grow older was to become invisible. But now, in your stillness, you see the truth. You are not invisible. You are simply no longer trying to be everywhere, for everyone. You've made peace with where you are. And in doing so, you've become more visible to yourself than ever before. The world still tries to whisper in your ear, through ads, through TV, through well-meaning friends, that you should be doing more, looking younger, staying active every minute of the day. But now, you know how to smile and shake your head. Because you've discovered the quiet joy of doing enough. Being enough. Having enough. You sleep when you're tired, not when the clock says to. You eat what you enjoy, not what you think you should. You say no without guilt. And yes, when something truly stirs your spirit. You no longer force connections that don't feel right. You no longer fill your calendar just to avoid the silence. Instead, you curate your time. Like an artist. You give your energy to the things that matter, and you leave space for the unknown. For the light that finds its way through an open window. For the neighbor who stops to chat. For the late-night laugh that bubbles up for no reason at all. And maybe that's the most powerful truth. Our strength doesn't come from holding everything together. It comes from knowing when to let go. It comes from knowing what you can control and choosing peace in the face of what you cannot. You begin to see that life doesn't need to be loud to be beautiful. You find richness in your routine. You find depth in your solitude. You find clarity in your reflection. And when the world goes quiet again, instead of fearing it, you welcome it like an old friend. Because now, silence doesn't mean absence. It means presence. You're here, fully. And you've stopped waiting for happiness to arrive like a guest at the door. You've realized happiness has lived inside you all along, patiently waiting for you to slow down, turn inward, and say, "I'm ready." And you are. Ready to enjoy your tea without rushing. Ready to walk through the park without needing a reason. Ready to pick up a pen or paintbrush or puzzle and do something simply because it makes you smile. Ready to look in the mirror, see your face just as it is, and feel no need to change a thing. You are enough. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are when everything else falls away. So maybe today, you light that candle just for you. Maybe you cook your favorite dish, plate it nicely, and say grace, even if no one's watching. Maybe you sit on the porch and let the breeze brush your face, knowing that right here, right now, you are living a full life, not in spite of the quiet, but because of it. And when someone does call, when your daughter checks in or your grandson wants to FaceTime, you receive it with joy, but not desperation. Because you are not waiting to be filled. You are already full. You are not fading. You are blooming. Differently than before, yes, but just as beautifully. This is what living with intention feels like. This is what aging with grace looks like. Not racing to keep up, but choosing what fits, letting go of what doesn't, and showing up every day with a heart that is steady, open, and kind. To others, yes, but also to yourself. So take this moment now, while you're here, and let yourself feel proud. You've made it through seasons of change, of loss, of doubt. You've learned how to sit with yourself and not flinch. You've grown wise enough to know that joy doesn't always shout. It often whispers. And if this video has spoken to something in you, I want to thank you for being here, for showing up, for giving yourself permission to live your own way, in your own rhythm, on your own terms. If you feel moved to, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment and let me know how you've embraced peace and happiness in this chapter of life. Share your experience, because your story matters. It might even light the way for someone else who's just beginning this journey. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We have more stories and reflections on the beauty of life after 60. Because believe me, it's only just getting started. Here's to you, to your peace, your presence, your quiet joy. You're exactly where you're meant to be.